I don't want to mess up anything about them, and I want them to share what they want you to know about them and who they are, and maybe how they came to be a part of this panel. So please introduce yourselves.
My name is Naomi Something to Say Johnson. I am an entertainer and entrepreneur here in San Antonio. I am a resident, lifelong resident of the Midwest by way of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I moved to San Antonio 3 years ago, so I am a Texas transplant. I am a full lifetime Black woman. I feel that I am more than qualified to speak to the questions that may arise from having watched this movie. As well, I am the host of what is very, very popular now called the Rap Brunch, where I created an environment that women from other walks of life could come and learn from Black women. And it's just so happened that it ran into this space that we're in now. So I was asked to be a part of this panel to speak to the issues surrounding said panel. So I feel more than qualified as I am a lifetime Black woman.
All right, y'all welcome her.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kirsten Thompson. I am too a resident of San Antonio, Texas. I actually am part of this panel because I did not want this event to happen. I was vehemently opposed to it. My stance and my position were that Rachel be uninvited, and also that the screening not occur. However, we were able to come to a compromise, thank you. And I do see the value in having different points of view represented. Secularly, I'm a mother, I'm a wardrobe stylist, I'm a writer, I'm a film costumer, I'm a full-time creative professional that owns a couple of businesses here in town.
All right, y'all come on, welcome, Kirsten.
I'm Verda Bird. I am on the panel because I have a book out called 70 Years of Blackness. I was born white, raised Black, and 4 years ago I became white again, according to my adoption documents. I've been here 30 years in San Antonio. My husband and I came from Tokyo, Japan, and he's retired Air Force. So I welcome everyone here.
Y'all welcome our panelists today. We're giving ourselves 30 minutes for the dialogue from the panelists. There are 4 questions that have been sent to me that I will ask. Each question, you'll each have a chance to share in. The first question, I'm doing this quickly because I want to make sure that we are using our time wisely to get to what we're trying to get to. So the first question, how do we invite non-Blacks to celebrate and participate in our culture without giving them a green light to infringe or appropriate? So whoever goes first, anyone can answer it. Hopefully all of you will chime in on it. If you need the question again, just let me know.
Okay, so I think using the word invitation is very tricky to begin with, because as Black people, we have always been very welcoming and very inviting. That's part of the reason why we are economically and socially in the predicaments that we are in now. And I say predicaments plural because it's layered and complex. So I don't think that the onus of invitation lies directly upon our shoulders. I think that people who appreciate Blackness, people who love the music, people who love the different ways that we speak and move and present ourselves, whatever it may be, I don't think that onus is upon us to invite people in. I think people need to educate themselves. I think people need to read. I think people need to do research, and people need to do the work themselves to see how they can, because this is the age of information. The information is out there, it's abundant, it's online, it's in archives, it's in libraries. So I don't think it's necessarily our onus, because we've already been tasked with so much, and that's not a popular stance. I'm sure that many people hearing me say that would disagree, but that is the way that I feel. I don't think it's on It's not our task to do that.
Okay. Hold on to the mic for a second. Let me follow up. And I hear you saying that. So it's not on us, you believe, to invite. You said they ought to do the work, do the research. Let's say someone has done the work. A non-black person has done the research. They put in the labor. What then? Are they then allowed to participate in our culture? What's your opinion on that? They've done the work, done the labor. So that you didn't invite them, they kind of showed up, hey, I'm here, I've done the work, I've done the labor, so what's up? What's next?
Okay, so language is a funny thing. We're using the word allowed.
Mm-hmm.
We are never not allowing people to do anything because people are going to do it with or without our permission if they're hell-bent on doing so. That's the first issue, is this language of allowance. It's
Okay.
very tricky. The second thing is you have to qualify what is doing the work. So I almost have to throw the question back to you because you're saying if they've done the work, what constitutes the work? Some people think that listening to hip hop is doing the work.
And I'm
that
basing that on what
qualifies
you
them.
said, so you explain what you, in your definition, what is the work? 'Cause that's- yeah.
I'll reiterate, it's doing research, it's going into archives, it's reading work by scholars like James Baldwin and Audre Lorde and Langston Hughes. I mean, there's so many. I feel like me even listing the people is sort of redundant because these are people that have been, actually, since we're in Dreamweek, even reading the work of Dr. King himself. I've found a lot of rhetoric surrounding, the quote of love overcoming hate and that sort of thing. And the people that like to bandy these terms about typically have not even read his work, so they're not really familiar with them. And what happens, I'm not done, you did ask me a question.
I know,
What
I want to
happens
interject to
is
move us
that,
forward because now you've explained the word, so now
Well,
they've
I
done
wasn't
everything
finished.
that you have already
this
said.
is what happens when black women speak. I really
No,
want to
no,
finish
no.
the question.
Okay.
So what happens is that people are speaking to Dr. Martin Luther King's dream, but they actually have not read his work in totality and do not understand it. So as someone who's read all of his books, all of his essays, I really feel strongly, excuse me, that doing the work includes at the very minimal level even doing that. And the reason I wanted to bring that point about is because we are smack in the middle of Dreamweek. So that was the point I wanted to make.
Okay. I can't repeat everything you just said. I can't even remember it. Now, back to the question at hand. They've done everything you just said. Are they welcome to participate in the culture?
Like I said, it's not up to me to welcome or not welcome. People are going to do what they want to do. I can only have an opinion about it. I can speak on it, but I am not in any capacity physically restraining someone or going to their home and saying, you cannot do this. The whole world is black culture, if you really think about it. Popular American music came out of black culture. Every classification that we have, whether it's rock, whether it's modern R&B, whether it's pop, it sprang forth from the well of black culture. So you have that aspect. When you think about the beauty standards that exist now, I can stay down there this time. The beauty standards that exist now, I remember growing up being a young girl and being thin. I've always been thin. So back then, Jane Fonda was the prototype, like that's the ideal beauty. You look forward now and everybody wants full lips. Everybody wants a big booty. Everybody wants a Coke bottle shape. What's the change? Because the world now is saying, there's this ideal black body type that women have that we want to possess. So I have friends who are plastic surgeons. They're making so much money off of this black female body type. And so the point that I'm making is that whether I have a feeling about it or not, it is going to continue to happen. It is happening. So I'm not inviting anyone. I'm not telling them what they can and cannot do. I'm simply stating as a black woman what I feel and what I understand when I observe these things happening.
Someone else want to share on this question?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure, I
Just
can.
for my clarity.
Sure, I can. How do we, here's the question, how do we invite non-blacks to celebrate and participate in our culture without giving them a green light to infringe or appropriate?
Okay. So moving forward, I just want to preface the way that I respond. It's not a license. It's not an ask. I'm a round-the-way girl. I use jargon that you may not be familiar with. I roll my neck. I inflect. I use slang, but I am the most educated roundaway girl you could ever sit next to. So let's preface that with that. I do not want anybody to walk away with a sense of incomplete. Does that make sense? I know that's not the King's English, but that is, I just don't want them to walk away with a sense of lack. I think that's the better way to put that. As far as giving someone permission to take part in my culture, Rachel said something in a movie that pretty much stung me, and it's who defines that? Well, we do. We always have. And it's been Eurocentric society that has always come along and said that's wrong. So now that we're in Nouveau, and we're something that is the cute thing to do and the cool thing to do, everybody want a nay-nay. But when Nene, which is my family nickname, when Nene Nene's is ghetto. But when Sharon Nene's on The View, oh, it's nuance, it's this, it's that. Oh my God, we all gotta learn how to Nene now. The black folks been tired of Neneing. But when the white folks pick it up, it's the thing to do. And that's always been the case. So when you ask me for permission to take part in my culture, you never asked me in the first place. Nobody ever said, is it okay to wrap my hair the way you do? I've had white women come to me and ask me some of the most monkiest questions ever. To say, oh my goodness, that's just wonderful, and then invite themselves to touch me. I am not something to invite yourself to. Ask permission. Yes, that question did preface itself with saying, how do we give permission? You didn't even give me a chance. You made your decision for me to invite yourself to my experience. And I think that is what the general consensus is about this movie. You invited yourself to a party no one asked you to come to. Nobody ever asks the black woman how she feels until we make our statements known. And then it's, oh, well, she's pissed off and she's angry and we're everything that is, what nobody wants to be until it's time to be. And I'm gonna say this, and it may not be PC, and Paul Mooney put it the best. Everybody want to be a nigga until it's time to be a nigga. Everybody want to be black until it's time to be black. Until you're under the gun, until you're under the pressure. She can't even handle what she's getting. And I've been getting this since I got here. So you picked up the baton and said, you know what? I want to try this out because I don't like my childhood. I don't like what I've been through. I survived my first drive-by at 5 years old.
Wow.
Not because it's something that I was, what I did, it was the environment that I grew up in. But I did not want to put down said blackness because of a traumatic experience. And that's where I do feel the caller or the interview that she was on during the montage that asked her, have you sought out help? Because back in the day, we called it identity crisis. If I felt like I wanted to wake up and be a giraffe, everybody goes, look at me. Wait. You're still a human. You have 2 legs. You do not have an extended neck, nor do you have spots. You have nappy short hair. You are black. You are built as a full-figure black woman. So for me to give permission for somebody to have my experience, oh, boo, no. Absolutely not.
Let me preface. Could you pass the mic? What do you want to? Let me say this. As I moderate and go on, I've been given permission to move us on. I'm not cutting the black sister off. All right. I'm just trying to move us on. We have some other questions to entertain, and so I see where we're kind of lagging. I want to get to the point, and then I want to allow for the crowd to be able to share in it. So please don't get offended by me moderating and trying to move us forward a little bit. All right. All right. Okay. Let's go on. Number 2. What would have been the difference in the impact of Rachel's message had she done the same work presenting herself as the white woman that she is, as opposed to misrepresenting herself as being black?
The most powerful person in the world is the white woman. Everybody listens to her, no matter what she says, no matter what she does. If you look throughout history, the white woman has always been listened to. If the master took favor of a certain black enslaved woman, it was up to her if that woman survived another day. As you've seen in 12 Years a Slave, Patsy did nothing wrong. She was just pretty and black and favored under the master. And because the white woman was upset with her, she tortured Patsy with no abandon, i.e. Emmett Till. Emmett did not get justice until this woman was on her deathbed. I think that goes without saying. It is not up to us to provide these avenues. It is not up to us to just hold your hand through this understanding. You have a power, and I'm speaking to the white women in the room specifically. You have a power to sway the change. It is not on me to give you morality. It is not on me to change your spirit. It is not on me to lead the charge. You know what you have in this world. It starts with you, with the Women's March. It took a white woman to tell the other white women, these black and brown women have a voice. Why did it take her to say that? Because no one listens to a woman of color until she is verified and uplifted by a white woman who understands.
Can we hear from Roberta? Give her a chance to speak, and then we can come back.
I agree with the other beautiful black women on the panel. Even though my story is a little different, this is my birth parents. They were white. My birth certificate says they were white. This is my adopted parents. They were black. The birth certificate says they were Negro. So according to my adoption documents, like I said, 4 years ago, I became white again. But that doesn't fit me. I have been Verda, Wagner, Bird for 70-some years of my life. I don't claim to ever be white, because I don't feel white. And according to documents, I'm not white. But that doesn't make me. I know who I am and who I have been, and I feel comfortable with who I will be. So, 70 years of blackness has been my story.
I want to answer this question as well. When you talk about standing in your truth and who you are as a person and being authentic, that is not a racial issue. Showing up in the world and presenting yourself as who you are is an issue of moral integrity. That actually has nothing to do with black or white. Now, to answer the question about how much more powerful would it have been, just in Houston about a month ago, I went to go see Jane Elliott out of curiosity. And I think all of you probably know who she is. She's a white woman, she's an activist, and she has charged herself with speaking directly to her people. Because, as Naomi mentioned, white women and white people in general do tend to listen to people who look like them more. So I maintain that if Rachel had said, if she had just been forthcoming, and just said, you know what, I love black culture. I love, I want to have mixed or biracial children. I love the hair, I love the style, I love the dress. This is not who I am, but I still want to show up and I still want to advocate. Do you know how many more of her people would have come along with her? Do you know how much more impactful it would have been? Because as the numerous black women in the film indicated, this message that Rachel Dolezal was putting out is nothing new. Black women have been saying the same thing forever. And it's unfortunate that what it takes to amplify our voices is for someone outside to come along. And it's really a sad unspoken truth that we realize this. I'm not active in the way that I used to be, but I used to be a full-fledged activist / organizer, and I was always into something. And what I realized is, doesn't matter how many degrees I have, doesn't matter how many countries in the world I've been to, doesn't matter how many books I've read, in those spaces, a white woman could just come up, and by virtue of her just being white, everyone automatically defers to her. So when you're in these spaces, you have to say, okay, is this something I'm going to go along with, or am I just going to assert myself? So in many instances, I said, you know what, I'm just going to let this woman have the stage in this forum because everyone's going to listen to her. So I'm speaking from personal experience, but also from years of just observation and living in my skin, that a lot of times it takes another person to come in and validate what we've already said ad nauseum. And that's something we really need to examine. We really need to examine why that is. And I think it's unfortunate that people want to sort of jump and go fast forward in racial talks, because we're never really actually going to have equality until we admit that there is a problem. What's happening is now is everyone wants to just glaze over, and everyone wants to sort of just be PC and be and not, you know, rock the boat too much and say things like, well, if someone feels this way inside, that's who they are. But as Dr. Jane Elliott would say, to the non-Black people in this room right now, would you right now trade places with a Black person knowing the experiences that Black people have to go through? And most people would not be willing, and that's an uncomfortable truth as well. So until we attack those things and really start to like break it down to the point where we're all very uncomfortable, we have to get uncomfortable. And right now, nobody wants to get uncomfortable. Everyone wants to sing Kumbaya, and that's lovely, but we're not at that point now. So we cannot have transracial until we have equality. So maybe 5,000 years from now, we can have people who are transracial, but we're not even at the point where we can admit that there is something wrong. There's something wrong in terms of economic disparity, socially. It's a lot. And in the interest of time, I'll stop there.
Let me say this. Let me say this before you go. And I agree with the premise of what you're saying, especially with white women. And then, of course, someone said just white people in general. I believe white people listen to white people. I get it. But not always when it comes to Black issues. Because as you talk about Jane and others, there are a plethora of white people who have advocated and are advocating for the Black agenda, but they're called nigger lovers back in the day, or they're being pushed aside. And so white people don't listen, they're listening to white people when it comes to advocating for Black issues.
And I totally agree with that, and I just want to interject. She made a point, and it's something that also needs to be corrected. We all want equality. There's this meme that I love, and every time it comes back around, I post it back out there. There's these children standing on milk crates, and they're all leaving. And the children are different sizes and heights. One can see over the fence, one can just peek over the fence, one doesn't see the fence at all. That's equality. Justice is evening the scale for everyone. So the shortest kid gets 2 boxes. The middle kid gets a box and a half. The kid that's taller than everybody doesn't get a box at all. That's justice. I want justice. I don't want equality. Because if I'm equal with the next person in their, how can I put it, in their lack, we're not equal. If you give such and such, okay, white people, let's do it because we're here. If you give a white person 30 years of wealth, which would be equivalent to 3 generations of wealth, and you give me 1, who got the longer race to run, him or me? Because he has 3 years of a system that's set up for him to succeed. I still have 1 generation of wealth, but I also have 3 generations of oppression, of injustice, of discrimination, and plus I was born woman and Black, so I got 2 strikes in this life. But I also have a 3rd because I am a Black woman that chooses to use her voice. That's why I want justice. I don't want equality. I do not want to sit at a table that is uneven on my side and even at yours, and you didn't even want me to bring my own chair. That's why I want justice and not equality. Thank you.
2 minutes or 1 minute.
I'm going to address your point about white people not listening. And let me say this, my house looks like the United Nations, just for the record. Some of my best friends are Jewish, Pakistani, Cambodian, Panamanian, and we have these kinds of conversations in my home all the time. So this is not, even though I have the right to be angry, this is not like an angry Black woman speaking. Like, I live my life constantly digging deeper and searching for answers and challenging people that I love and having them challenge me back. So now I have 1 minute. When given the choice, yes, white people don't always listen to other white people, but when given the choice and hard pressed to listen to another white person or a person of color or a Black person, it will almost always be another white person. You think of people like Tim Wise, who has a huge platform, huge. And when you really look at the work, his pedigree, if you will, that he's done, he hasn't really done much except for open his mouth. That's what he's done. He's opened his mouth. And just by virtue of him being a white male, people defer to him as an authority figure. So there are other, Black male and female activists that have been doing work in the trenches, who have, PhDs and have papers published in journals, who've been doing community organizing. And I have nothing against Tim Wise, but I still do see that he has been able to galvanize because he's a white male. And so that's just the point that I wanted. They may not always listen, but given the choice, that's who they're going to defer to. And that just goes back to, he's being authentic, he's being himself.
Let me say this and we're gonna move on. I agree, and Tim Wise is one of my best. Like to hear him and see what he's saying. But it still doesn't move the boss. A lot of talk, and they sit and they share the videos, but after a while, nothing changes. Here's what I've discovered. White folk make a change when it impacts their pocketbook.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
It's not because another white person talked. It's because someone showed them, if we stop riding these buses, it's gonna mess up your money. Slavery, come on, we know that's economical. So it's more economical. That speaks to white people than anybody advocating for a Black cause. The next question is this, though. Having watched the documentary, if Rachel were here, what would you ask her?
What would I ask her? Well, I think the answer would be obvious. She was uninvited to come to San Antonio. To me, that's the answer that San Antonio would give her. And I think I would be on that same bandwagon.
Okay.
So to Ms. Verda's point, so I've been following the Rachel Dolezal story since everything happened. And I was following her on social media for a while because I was very curious. Just a week ago, someone said on her Instagram, "Oh my God, I'm glad you're coming to San Antonio, Texas." She said, "Well, sadly, that's no longer the case. I have been uninvited." And then the next person made a sad face and said, "Why?" Her response was one word. She said, "Haters." So what that says to me is that I don't need to ask her any questions, because this is a woman who still has not done the internal work, even to get to the point to realize that she has really hurt people. What she's continuously done is made herself a victim. And so because of that, I have nothing that I would want to ask her. What I would tell her is that you are violent and you are a racist. Now, a lot of people would say, how can she be racist? She has Black children and she has a husband, or several romantic partners who were Black. But I have ancestors and I have people in my family who look just like Rachel Dolezal because they're from Louisiana, and we know what Louisiana looks like. It's like a big old melange of everything. And there are people in my family who look just like Rachel Dolezal, but were a product of rape. And oral tradition is very much alive in my family on both sides, and so I know all of these stories. And the people that raped my great-grandmother were racists. They had sexual relationships with her. They were racist. And so what I would tell her is that she needs to cease and desist. The woman is very talented. We saw her artwork. It's beautiful. I would not take that away from her. So maybe she could use her experience to just focus on art and stop trying to speak for us. Or she could open up a salon and just do hair as a white woman. There's all sorts of things that she could do, but what I really feel is that she's continuing to sort of try to milk her 15 minutes of fame and push herself up on us, and we really don't want it. And I think people have spoken, not just in San Antonio. The person that made me aware of the event today and that she was coming was one of my clients, who's a Jewish woman, and she was like, no. She was just like, this is crazy, this is out of line. So I would tell her as opposed to asking her, because I think as Black women in society, we are always put in this position where we're asking. We're asking for a favor, we're asking for permission. Like, I don't want to ask her anything. I would tell her, like, you just need to stop and possibly seek therapy, because there is a part of me that does feel sorry for her, but there's also a pathology there where she believes all of her lies.
Timer just went off. Naomi, try to touch that question and we'll come to the audience.
Will. Okay, I have a few short points. The first one, there's this song that I heard from a Mario Van Peebles movie a long time ago. They did like a documentary on his dad. It was like a biopic, potato. And I can't remember the name per se, but it was about a blaxploitation film that he had did, and it was like this superhero, like kicking everybody's ass, and just like that time we always had those Black superheroes veiled within stereotypes. And it was this line they sang through the song, and through the movie. He said, "You bled my mama, you bled my papa," and he said, "Won't bleed me." I really would tell her, "You're not gonna bleed me. You are not going to continue to hit me where it hurts, in my Blackness, in my identity. It's not even something that I asked to be. When I woke up out of my mama's womb, when they slapped me on the tail and said, 'Welcome to the world,' they said, 'Oh, which one would you like to be?' It was, you were Black because your mom was Black, because her mom was Black, because her mom was Black, and her mom was Black, and because all of your forefathers were Black. They didn't ask to be brought here. They didn't ask to. We never were asked. It was always told to us. So the fact that you have a choice, baby, somebody need to hit you upside the head, because something ain't right up there. Something need to be shaking around. Cognitive dissonance is a thing. If you do not know what cognitive dissonance is, I implore you, I'm using my vocabulary words, I implore you, please look it up, because I really feel it's a wave. It's known as fake news, it's known as contrived stories. She said creative nonfiction. Baby, I write creative nonfiction. I'm a poet. That's creative nonfiction, is talking about the things that I've experienced. You have not experienced anything that I have woken up to be. Walking down the street, oh my God, and I'm gonna come on back, because I'm getting pissed off all over again. What happened to me just a few days ago? I was leaving the Alamo Black Chamber of Commerce. Walk my Black little happy self down the street, give me one of these little scooters right up the street and do what I need to do. I just performed the night before at another Dreamweek event for voter rights. And a guy walked up to me, "Oh my God, you were amazing. You were this, you were that, da da da." Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm still getting used to that because I don't know a lot of people, but thanks. He said, "I saw you at Luminaria. You were on the elevator with vocab." Everybody knows who vocab is. She's like the authoritarian of Black poetry in San Antonio.
Yes.
I wasn't there. It wasn't me. I was at home that night. What are you talking about? I didn't even go to the festival. Oh, that wasn't you? No, I wasn't there. I didn't even get invited to perform. I mean, no shade to Luminaria, but I wasn't there. And he's stuck in this moment because he realized with his white eye, the white eye is a thing. You see what you want to see. You pervade the world as you want to pervade, and when somebody else tells you the sky is actually blue, and you be like, it's cerulean. You be like, no, blue, boo, blue, like little boy blue, not a different shade of your reality. Okay. It is what it is. So, yeah, cognitive dissonance, look it up.
All right. Ms. Berta, you have something? We'll let you. You haven't talked much. And then next, if you have a hand, get it up, and we'll
I just want
just
to
a moment.
say,
So with the mic.
we're talking about racism. I found 3 living sisters that I didn't know I had, and one of them, we all met at my home in San Antonio. One of them was a racist. And she was sitting on my couch using the N-word, and I didn't like that too well. And then I asked her, I said, "Do you know who Martin Luther King is?" Oh, I think I heard his name somewhere.
Wow.
You know, that blew my mind. Blew my mind. I couldn't wait till she got out of my house, and she couldn't wait to get out of my house.
Thank you. All right. Who's up? Who's on first? Nina, it's on you. The crowd gets mad. It's on you.
I don't care. I really don't care. You guys are wonderful, but there was one thing that resonated with me. Is she told a lie. And no matter how sorry we feel for her, no matter how our hearts bleed for her, my heart bled for her children. She told a lie. And as a believer, a lie is a sin. And no matter how great or ungreat she is, or great or ungreat she did, she told a lie. And we can't stand with a lie.
Okay.
I don't see any hands up. Any hands up? Put your hands up.
Hi, my name is Susan Cunningham, and I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Great panelist. Myself, a little bit about myself. Yes, I was born in San Antonio. I have roots in Central America, Belize and Mexico. They're multiracial. And I also have deep roots going to the early 1800s in Louisiana, as we know. It's a hodgepodge, a gumbo of peoples. With that said, I think what hurts me more about Dolezal is like appropriating herself, but she's hurting her children. This woman has honestly psychiatric issues, and I feel that her youngest son could be possibly suicidal at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, she's so selfish. She should just be herself. I mean, people are gonna love you if they like you or not. Oh well. Me myself, I've been discriminated against myself because of colorism. If I can't sit here and say I've had your experience because I'm not as dark as you are. I'm actually 50% white. I've done my DNA. My mom's done her DNA. We're 10% African, 30-something% American Indian. The rest is all white, English and French. And you know what? If I went on that end, I'd never be accepted because I'm tainted. I have color. And not only do I have color, but I've lived that experience, and my forefathers and the forefathers before me. I believe San Antonio to be a segregated town. I was born October 1st of 1966. I grew up in the deep West End off of Agnew Road, which was a predominantly black neighborhood. For those who don't know the history here in San Antonio, and I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot, and it's just a sad day. And you know, the one last thing I want to say, it hurts me so much that this is a predominantly multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial city, and we have almost 2 million people, and we have such a lousy turnout.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what that is.
It's ignorance. I would call it ignorance.
It's not that. It's not even that.
Okay.
No, I won't need a mic.
Oh, come on.
I want to keep it out there. I'll say this, as she's taking the mic to somebody. As a pastor of a church, I'll say this. You said talking about being tainted by just a little blood.
Yeah, the one drop world.
Yeah, the one
I'm not advocating for Rachel at all, but I understand also you are tainted by having black children. Pastoring a church is almost like we don't get a white husband and wife and white children. That's very rare. You usually get a white husband, black wife, or vice versa, but just them having black children puts them in a different